Hi teachers, welcome to the course of ECE 211 Language and Literacy in Young Children. Let's start off with Chapter 1A Language Development. This drawing may give you an insight about language development. First, let's look at language and literacy. The term language and literacy is often used interchangeably, but they are rather dissimilar. Language in the broader term includes all modes and four skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It also includes words, phrases, and sentences, grammatical structures, both in spoken and written forms. Language also uses idioms, jargon, or slang. It is the primary way to communicate with each other. Language development, or LDV, follows a predictable sequence. The sequence is related but not tied to chronological age. It means that some children may develop language faster than others. This developmental process encompasses sending and receiving information. In other words, language is learned through use as humans acquire language through social interaction in early childhood. Children acquire language by learning as it is spoken. As the child approaches 3 years old, she or he can speak fluently, progressing from simple to complex sentences. Infants start without language, but by 4 months old, babies are able to read lips and discriminate speech sounds. This language spoken by infants is known as babbling. Literacy is the language in use and the ability to read and write. It involves 4 language skills. Besides reading and writing, they are listening and speaking, as I had mentioned earlier. Literacy also provides the awareness of tone types and connotations relevant to a variety of work, social or cultural contexts. What is language development, or LDV? LDV, or language development, is a process by which children come to understand and communicate language during early childhood. It is a process where a child begins to acquire language as he or she is learning it as it is spoken. There are 3 major theories of language development. They are the behaviorist theory, the nativist approach or theory, and the interactionist theory. The behaviorist theory. Behaviorists believe language is something that can be observed or measured. Based on the works of Skinner and Bandura, it was stated that language is acquired through operant conditioning, that is, reinforcement and imitation. For instance, when a child calls out the word mama, the mother responds with a smile, and this encourages the child to repeat. Children learn their first language through stimulus, response, imitation, and reinforcement. The behaviorist theory has been criticized for the following reasons. It is quite impossible for a child to learn all the words and sentences in a language only by imitation and reinforcement. The errors made by a child could not result from imitation, since adults generally use correct language. Other factors that influence a child's language learning are not being considered as well. The nativist theory. This theory, as advocated by Chomsky, argued that children have an innate or inborn language acquisition device, LAD, that facilitates language learning. According to him, any normal children are born with hardwired syntax that enables them to grasp the basic workings of language. That is to say, within LAD is a universal grammar containing rules that apply to all human languages. Therefore, this theory believes that language acquisition could be accounted for by an innate biological LAD or system. Criticism of this theory. The nativist theory is not without its criticism. It has been criticized for the following reasons. Researchers encountered difficulty in specifying the universal grammar believed by Chomsky that underlies the grammatical systems of all languages. No one can ignore the fact that adults play a key role in the LDV of children that cannot be attributed solely to the LAD. The interactionist theory. Proponents of this theory disagree with Skinner, Chomsky dichotomy, but proposed that LDV is determined by the interaction between what has been genetically provided, nature, and environmental influences, nurture. They believe children need more than a desire to speak, more than an inborn LAD, and more than a model to imitate. In this sense, caregivers play a key role in adjusting language to facilitate the use of innate capabilities and language acquisition. This theory also receives some form of criticism. It has been argued that this theory ignores social structures, power dynamics, and inequalities. It does not take into account every child or individual. Some children are unable to make choices and have little free will. In other words, learners do not get to choose consequences for actions. This theory also underestimates the power of structure. Language has been known to be the most complex form of communication used by humans. It allows for the transmission of knowledge, skills, and values of a culture. Linguists have identified the following elements found across all languages. The components of language include phonology, grammar, and meaning. Let's define the components. Phonology is the sound system of a language. Grammar, it comprises morphology, the structure of word and construction of word forms, and syntax, the order and combination of words to form sentences, while meaning includes semantics, the meaning of words and sentences, and pragmatics, the system that combines all the language components functionally and socially for appropriate communication. Just what is phonology? Phonology is a study of the sound system of language and the general properties displayed by this system that is a contrast in sound of phoneme that make the difference within the language. Phonemes and morphemes are a part of phonology. A phoneme is a minimal sound unit, not a letter, which is capable of contrasting word meaning. In English, there are 44 phonemes, 24 being the consonant phonemes and the rest of 20 are vowel phonemes. Morphemes are meaningful strings of sounds that cannot be further divided. They are the smallest units of meaning in a language. A morpheme is a meaningful linguistic unit consisting of a word, for example, cat, or a word element s at the end of the cats that cannot be divided further into smaller meaningful parts. Grammar is known as rules used to describe the structure of a language. These rules specify how words are combined to form sentences or syntax. Syntax. The syntax of language is a set of rules for producing acceptable phrases and sentences. For instance, cat it is not an acceptable English sentence. It is a cat and is it a cat are both acceptable. In other words, syntax deals with how words are put together to form phrases or sentences. How does it work? According to the rules of sentence formation. Where do the rules come from? They come from the grammar of the language. Young learners first invent their own rules by putting words into meaningful contexts. An early rule might be as simple as noun plus another word. For example, milk no more, mama go, water hot are some of the examples that you are familiar with. Semantics. Semantics is a study of meaning of words, phrases, and sentences. It refers to words used in the correct context and attached to the appropriate referent. Look at the following examples. Which sentence is meaningful and correct? The cat ate the fish, or the fish ate the cat? The first sentence uses words in a meaningful way. The second does not. As children enter the elementary years, they begin to understand some of the more subtle meanings. Pragmatics. Pragmatics is how people use language to communicate effectively with each other. It refers to the social language skills that we use in daily interactions with others. For example, what we say, how we say it, our non-verbal communication that includes eye contact, facial expressions, body language, and so on and so forth, and how appropriate our interactions are in a given situation. It is advisable to use simple words and sentences when talking to our young learners. Let's look at the examples below. Which example uses good use of pragmatic rules? Open the door, please. Open the door. How do children learn new words? According to Hollish et al. 2000, children learn new words through joint attention. When a child points to an object or an action, parents or adults say the word. For instance, when the child touches a ball, parents often label it for him by saying, "Ball, that's a ball." Hence, adults and children work together in fostering word meaning. Next, reduction on word meanings. While joint attention may explain how children learn new words, there's still the problem on whether the child is associating the word ball to the object or the action of touching the ball. Fortunately, children have this whole set of rules that help them make the distinction. Sentence clues. Children hear many unfamiliar words embedded in sentences, containing words they have already known. The familiar words in the overall sentence can function as clues to the new word meaning. This is known as sentence clues. To sum up, these are the basic components found in the language. Thank you.